Welcome to another episode of ResourceFULL. And today's guest is one that I've known for years. I've been watching his resources for years. And in fact, I know many of you have as well, because the number of times he's been downloaded is absolutely phenomenal. Just to tell you who I am, that's me pre-lockdown. My website is tommanners.co.uk, and you can follow me on Twitter at Mathematics. I'm an NCTM PD lead, I'm an SLE, I'm a PGCE lead for Maths at Arthur Terry in West Midlands. And I love that because one of the biggest things I have to do is share with them my beliefs, but everybody else's beliefs of teaching. But also, it's often about sharing the resources. The most important part of that is, of course, how to use them. I'm a teaching for mastery specialist with the NCTM as well. But let's talk about these resources, because today's guest has shared over 1,000 resources on TES and other places and websites with dodgy pictures in the background that he's told me about, but maybe we'll share that in a bit more. 1,000 resources uploaded onto TES. They've been downloaded over 5.3 million times. And I'd mentioned that to him just before we started recording, and he was almost like nonchalant about it. I would be so proud, and so he should be. But the point of getting these guests on is for them to explain, how do you use these and how does he use them as well? So today's guest, there he is. Oh, do you know what I didn't do? In fact, I'll just say, come on down. Is it Andy Lutwyche or Andy Lutwyche?
Lutwyche. It's said exactly how it's spelled, really.
In which
but
case,
everyone thinks it's Polish, but there you go. It's not. It's in the Doomsday Book, so it's very, very old English.
In which case, Andy, thank you very much for agreeing to do this, because, as I said before, I've been using your resources for a long, long time. You mentioned before we start recording that you did have a website as well, which you did as a bit of a joke with a. You mentioned there's a naughty picture in the background, but maybe...
Well, yeah, only vaguely. It was just it was a picture of my wife, but it wasn't that naughty.
Okay,
there you go. It was.
Let's not start the show in a completely smutty manner. Now, again, some of your resources. Now, one in particular has caught my eye in the last 12 months, and it's a series of them. And I know that one of our previous guests, increasingly difficult questions, we talked about the master of fluency practice.
Can I just say, I love increasingly difficult questions. Yeah, I think they're brilliant. I use them a lot.
But if he's the master of fluency, I think you've created the master of reasoning questions, the typical AO2 questions that are coming up in exams. Your Clumsy Clive series, which we'll look at in a bit, with the Erica's errors and all the other names, and I want to know where those names have come from. I think they're great for AO2. But Andy, first of all, let's talk about you. Tell us about your teaching career.
I've just completed 20 years of teaching. Feels like a lot. You get less for murder, but I'm sure that's not the first time you've heard that. Yeah, I've been in various. I've had 4 or 5 secondary schools. Teach. I'm a second in maths. Don't particularly want to be ahead of maths. Not that big on staring at spreadsheets, if I'm totally honest. Much prefer doing resources actually, and helping people out. So, you know, I sort of basically all my colleagues say, "Oh, have you got anything on this?" And I go, "Yeah, there's this. Take your pick. Don't mind. I quite like this." And actually, what I do tend to do. Sorry, I'll cut you off.
No, God, it's all about you.
What I do tend to do is accept requests. So somebody have so a colleague of mine, Steve, said, "Oh, I've got this good idea of and I've got I'll show you it. It's actually, do you want me to show you it now?"
Yeah, go on.
Right, hold on. I'm just going to open. Right, hopefully I've got it open. I have. It's this.
This is the point of the series, though, Andy. People like you, when people come to you and say, "Have you got a resource on?" You're the kind of guy who's been creative with these ideas for years and just sharing stuff. And so, you know, I think you talked yourself down a little bit of the impact that I believe you've had, but still, so tell us about what somebody wanted to see.
So this exploded. This is where it came from. In fact, I don't think this was the original one. The original one was rearranging formulae, but it was exploding equations. Essentially, you've got the answer in the middle, and you get various different stages. So I did the first one here, but no workings. So they have to put the workings on. So, and sometimes you're given the answers. Sometimes you're given the question, and sometimes you're given bits in the middle. And it was as Steve said to me, "Oh, I've come up with this kind of idea. What do you think about it?" And I said, "I'll leave it with me for a day or two, and I'll see what I can come up with." And I came up with these. I don't know if anyone's. I always, and if anyone is watching who does produce resources, is going to share them, please produce answers. It is honestly, the amount of time I spend doing answers on other people's stuff. I get why you might not want to, but it helps so much. And that's why I do it, because the whole point of me sharing resources is to save colleagues time. And if I realise that my resources aren't to everyone's taste, and I get that. That's completely fair enough. But whether it's to their taste or not, if there are answers there, it gives them the option, and it saves them time completely. So there you go. Essentially, I've got lots of different ones, but there you go. That's the first one that came up with. And I take requests. I've said to colleagues on Twitter who've contacted me, saying, somebody contacted me saying, oh, do you mind if I use, I can't remember which one it was now. Oh, the spiders. I do math spider, which I haven't got open actually. I might get open in a minute. The math spiders. Can I use them on my website and link to them? Of course you can. That's absolutely fine. And if you've got any requests for other spiders or other sorts of resources, just ask. It's fine.
Let's have a look at when you say about requests. Let's come out of my PowerPoint. And you enjoy these photos, don't you? A little bit more kind of.
Now that was a very cold day on Worthing Beach. All right, that's why my hood's up, and it was during Movember, so that's why I've got a tash as well.
There it is on your yes, you got the mysterious pictures that you do. There it is, over 5.3 million downloads. It's absolutely it's phenomenal, fella. It really is. But you know, some of these, I mentioned this for Dave Taylor. That resource that you've seen in every school. These diffuse the bomb ones.
Yeah.
Everybody uses that.
Well, do you know? Right. I'm kind of prophetic. I'm sort of in the sense that I try and write as many resources, and the code breakers are the same actually. If you use code breakers, and crack the safe is the same. They're self-marking. All right, and the reason I do self-marking,
because that's really important, you know, and that's not something that some people don't often realise. If you give them the answers, it's not you going through with them. So if I just get this one up on the screen here. So talk through this one if people haven't used it.
Yeah, so basically the red bit is just on the answer sheet for the teacher. Yeah. But each question, the answer appears up the top. And the reason I designed this was because what was happening when you do something new, Pythagoras in this case, is that they're not always sure whether they're getting it right, and they want reassurance that they're getting it right. So I thought, well, if I put the answers on the sheets, then if there are answers there, that gives them a bit of reassurance to keep going. And if they've shown their workings, then we can, if they have made a mistake, then we can go back and tackle that. But it means it saves me time at the beginning, and they can just get on with doing questions, which ultimately is how they're going to get better.
I always think that's one of the right ways of using not Tarsiers as such. What's the thing I'm kind of talking about? Where you have treasure hunts. Because if you've got 16, then there are 16 to look for. Now, the chances are, if you've got it wrong, it's not going to be one of the other 15 answers. But if you're going to you'll find it. Oh, good, I have got it. And the time it saves in the classroom to then go through it and going over to the server, got this right, miss, can you check my work, etc.
Exactly.
It's really important. You've hidden the answers, but the answers are there, if you know what I mean.
That's exactly
the answer, but go and find it.
That's precisely why I designed these. Crack the safe is exactly the same sort of concept. The reason I wrote these before, the notorious terrorist bit is a bit contentious for some people. Not for me personally, but which is why I did the crack the safe. But I did the deadly virus on the crack the safe one, and the antidote. The antidote's in the safe.
Don't write, do you, Andy? You just
seriously, I can see into the future.
You're like the Simpsons.
Almost, yeah, exactly. I wish I was, but there you go.
Let's go back to your test page, if we may, because as I said, there's so many that have been downloaded. Diffuse the bomb. I think I've put it by highest rated ones here. We'll come to the Clumsy Clives because there's an example here. We'll talk about those. You're very creative. I can see immediately. We've got the Avengers, Baking Bad, Prison Break.
Now, Baking Bad. Funnily enough, a lot of these, the name of the resource comes before the content, and then I shoehorn the content in, which you may notice in some. But the prison break, the loci thing, that was a lot of these. There's a Barbie and Ken one actually. What was it? There was a girl in my year 11 or 10, I can't remember, this was about a decade ago, who said, you always do stuff for boys, do something for girls. I said, I'm not a girl. I said, give me a clue. And she said, well, do something on Barbie. So the next lesson we did Barbie and Ken's something or other. I think it was on transformations actually. Barbie and Ken's Transformation Adventure, and where actually, funnily enough, I won a trip to a maths conference for that.
Really?
So yeah, Craig Barton said it was really good. So I won tickets to something in York, which was rather nice.
Good on you.
So
Oh, this is a Prison Break one, and yeah, just flicking through. You know, this is being creative. It's not the same old. Here's a question. It just gets the kids excited. And you're clearly quite big on that with the stuff that you're doing, whether it be you're off your TV stuff or even just a context. It doesn't make it AO3 necessarily. It's still fluency quite often, but it just makes it a little bit more enjoyable.
But yeah, agreed. And I was never a big fan of doing maths for just the sake of doing maths. Now, I've been criticised for that. In fact, I've been criticised for not having maths as my hobby. I didn't want to be a PE teacher because I was quite good at sport before I got all fat and old and broken, basically. And people say, oh, if you're quite good at sport, why don't you be a PE teacher? I said, because I don't want my hobby to be my job, and vice versa. And so therefore I don't do a lot of maths outside. I say that I see one of my hobbies is creating resources. So I actually do, but I see that as a different discipline. Whereas my dad was a maths teacher, he will do. I send him further maths A-level papers, and for him to have a go at, because he's basically bored and annoys my mum when he's not got something to do. So therefore, I mean, he likes doing maths, that sort of stuff. I'm not massively into that, but you know, and some people can criticise me for that. They're welcome to. That's their opinion. But yeah, so I kind of need a reason. When I was doing my PGCE, we were asked to do a project on anything, and I said, well, I wasn't brilliant at projectiles when I did my A-level maths and further maths, so I want to do something on that. And I thought I'd do something based on the flight of a cricket ball when Shane Warne was bowling a flipper compared to his normal leg spinner, and the flipper makes it dip quicker, and it's the overspin. And it's all about air resistance and stuff. And my university PGCE tutor, the maths person, was just like, why can't you just do like something on projectiles? Why do you have to bring sport in? Because another project was plotting a curve to Brighton and Hove Albion's last 20 league positions in an attempt to predict where they were going to finish the following season. My prediction predicted they'd finish in something like Brighton Sunday League Division 19. And so therefore it was a bit of a waste of time. But she was just like, why are you doing all this sports stuff? I said, I need a reason to do it.
Isn't it interesting though, because I do see it sometimes where people think, putting a question into context suddenly makes it problem solving, and it doesn't really.
No.
It's trying to pick out the information from it. But sometimes, again, you could just have the abstract form. You could have the abstract in a context. But if you then did a load of abstracts without context, it's actually just as easy. Maybe it's just to make you smile less, because I mean, you know, I've met you today and we're having this conversation, and I can see from you straight away it's just the buzz in the classroom. Now there's absolutely an argument for just sometimes having the maths and making us realise the patterns between them, because you don't have to lose any of that by doing the work that you're doing.
Not at all. To be honest, if I'm not enjoying it, the students aren't going to enjoy it. So I like having a bit of a laugh in my classroom, to be honest. We have, you know, you've seen the code breakers I do, lots of jokes. The kids hate the jokes. My doorbell's just ringing at the moment. Do you mind if I go and answer the door?
We will press pause on the recording and then it'll be...
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Of course. This is why I usually do them live, but I'm going to record this one, so I'm going to press pause. And we're back. That was seamless. I think you're right, though, about you enjoying your lessons. And I remember using, because you were the guy, you made your website for a while. I haven't seen the questions from Chris Moyles' program, the what should have been bid maths but wasn't bid maths kind of. And that just made it fun. Yeah,
and it was good. That sort of thing made them, it focused the students, I found. Focused me, just doing the answers, to be fair. You had to listen quite intently, and it's good practice for that sort of thing. And they had a bit of a laugh, and it was bands that they liked at the time. It wasn't bands I particularly liked. I didn't mind the Automatic or Keen at the time. I think I've sort of moved on from them a little bit now. But you know, it's the classroom for me should be an energetic place, and I. Funny enough, I was thinking about this before we started this, and I always get a little bit nervous when the classroom's silent, because because I kind of wonder what's going on. What are they doing? And that's, and you know, and that's partly me. And yet, if you spoke to anyone that I teach, I'm one of the most annoying people in the world, and I'll just make a noise just to be annoying. So at the end of tests, I put the countdown music on sometimes, you know, for the last 30 seconds. And they just, it is annoying, and I know it's not helpful, but the students seem quite relaxed in there and happy to offer opinions. And actually, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build an environment where people are happy to get involved, and people are happy to offer an opinion, even if it's potentially wrong. It doesn't matter. I'd rather people said something that was wrong than just sat there in silence, nervous.
Absolutely.
Not to say anything.
What you're doing is creating the right environment in the classroom for people to want to be engaged. And I imagine with your demeanour, it is okay to be wrong. And as you say,
absolutely,
classroom is a suspicious classroom. I quote that one from Nick Van Haar all the time. I can't stand it either. I don't like silence at all. But yeah,
some people do though. Some people do like silence, and I've got no problem with that. That's, you know, each their own. Well, I think it's unrealistic to expect every teacher to behave exactly the same. And you know, I said, I went to a school like that shall remain nameless, and I had an observation from my line manager, who wasn't my head of department, it was my line manager, who said to me, I would have done it like this. I would have taught that lesson like this. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there. It sounds like you've hired the wrong person and really should have got a robot, because you know, that's not me. If you've hired me expecting me to be you, you've genuinely got the wrong person. And then after that, we had a proper grown-up conversation.
Let's talk more about some of the resources you've done. I want to get onto the, so I'm going to start sharing my screen again.
Cool.
Oddly enough, the joy of me being a PGC tutor is I get to go into lots of schools and they suddenly share stuff with me. Yep. And so you can see here the Andy Lutwyche folder, Clumsy Clive, because you created this character, although Becky's botcher, Bob's blunder, Kel's
crumbs.
If I go backwards, in A level it was Erica's errors, and you've created resources for virtually, I would imagine, almost the whole of the curriculum. And I've purposely not chosen any in advance. I just wanted to go to them because you give the answers as well. And I think these are superb when it comes to AO1, AO2, because these are very common things that we're seeing in exams at the moment. But I'm interested in how these are used as well. So just if you can talk us through what the makeup of these files are, and then how you use them in your classroom.
Right. Well, essentially, these are, I use the name Clive because not many people are called Clive nowadays. So I didn't want anyone in a class to I wanted as few people in the class go, oh, that's my name, and feel all down about it. Same with Erica, actually. It took me ages to come up with the name of this, so I would offend the fewest amount of people possible. So there you go. So that's first thing, which will be a surprise to many, because many kind of think I don't think very hard about these sorts of things, but I do. Now, I tend to use these, I have to say, at the end of a topic. So when I think we're pretty much done, I just want to check before we move on. And they were based on all the sorts of misconceptions and the errors that I'd seen during my 20 years of teaching, essentially. Now, some I sort of, it's quite difficult to get all of them, but what I was really surprised at is even the quietest classes. My year 10s are starting a hashtag of cancel Clive, because they actually said to me, one of the last lessons before lockdown, they said, I'm sick of correcting Clive's mistakes. What if he keeps making these mistakes? What is the point? I understand how annoyed you get with me, sir, is what they said. But when I keep making the same mistakes, because Clive is annoying me now. So they've come up with a hashtag of cancel Clive. I've come up with a response which is Clive is alive, the hashtag. So there we go. But yeah, they create lots of discussion. Even the least willing student I've found will discuss what's going on. And actually, even if you get a class that, and everyone has them, that really lacks confidence and doesn't want to make mistakes, you know, has not been used to that sort of thing, they'll have a go at this with a bit of coaching, and that's fine. And that's kind of part of your job, really.
Well, let's talk about that coaching then, because I think there can be a problem with how people would use this, because This one here, you multiply them. What is the answer? And then what mistake? They'd say they didn't get the right answer. So I think that this could be answered poorly, if you like. So
Yes, absolutely. Well, sorry, yeah, a lot of my students try and leave that blank, and I said, I know you can do it. I'm not that bothered about your answer because I know you can do it. All right, I want you to explain in words exactly what's going on, and they go, well, I can't. I don't know how to write it down. Okay, well, what do you think he's done? And they'll say it to me. I said, well, write that down.
Yeah.
And actually, what I often do, not as often as I should probably, what I often do is, hold on, I'm going to write down word for word what you say on the board. Okay, and write down word for word what's gone wrong there. And they'll go, I said, well, what's wrong with that as an answer? Or can anyone, I said, that's a good answer. Everyone agrees with that answer. Are there any sort of vague bits of wording or anything? Can we improve that explanation? And that goes down quite well. The writing exactly what people say on the board, I've found, is quite a useful tool as well. And that helps them with this. And they get better. It's a case of training, actually. I mean, they need training to do it. They're not used to explaining in words what mistakes they make.
I think this series of questions that you've done, and you've shared them all for free on TES as well, that it's AO2, it's speaking like a mathematician, which is something that I've kind of started putting out there a little bit more. The right words being used. So what you're saying really, your answer is here's your abstract answer, but what mistake has Clive made? Using the proper language, explaining the misunderstanding or explaining what they haven't read. In this instance, it's the fact they haven't read the answer in index form. I'm not going to lie, it took me 3 times to reword that. I think there's nothing wrong with this. And I just went back to the question and realized it. This one here, when indices are divided, you subtract. And so, okay, I can see the issue now there. Writing using the proper language as a sentence here.
Absolutely. Yeah, now, the what mistake has Clive made? I thought quite carefully about the wording of that. I know that I'm probably over-egging my own contribution here, if I'm totally honest. But I thought I didn't want to make that too how should we say, academic sounding, because that would put off. I think that would put off the language. Would put off some students, not all, but it would put off some students. So I wanted to make that as accessible as possible, because ultimately, if people don't find it accessible, there's no point in the resource existing at all. And so I don't like particularly the wording of what mistake has Clive made. I don't particularly like that, but I think students feel more comfortable with that because that doesn't sound very intellectual.
So when you're saying you want it to be intellectual, are you hoping that explaining using proper mathematical language the error that Clive has
I think that becomes inaccessible.
Okay.
I think you can say that to the right class. But I think writing that down, they just go, I don't know what that means, big words.
But the key of this series as well, again, is to making sure the teachers know how to use this properly. And you're thinking the biggest impact is absolutely, that should be sentence, that should be words, that should be written down as an explanation of what's been going on. I mean, I just want to go back to this because I'm choosing them randomly. So if I'll go on then, let's go with Careless Carol.
Okay. I've not seen Careless Carol.
Well, it's yours, so I'm hoping you have.
No, it's not.
Oh, some of them not yours?
No, Careless Carol. I've never done Careless Carol.
In which case, the department I think I met this from, school in Birmingham, I think it was
using mine as a template.
Yeah, so good on them, and you'll be proud of that.
That's fine. They're welcome to.
So again, the chosen name is Carol that common in children being born at the moment? I don't necessarily know.
I don't think that's me. I need to check that. I don't think that's me, but I recognise that. I recognise that question.
Okay.
But
how interesting.
Whatever.
Yeah, but again, you're not bothered by that. It's not as if people are
not really
stealing it.
If people were, I wouldn't put them for free if I would be bothered.
And that's again the reason I'm doing this series, really. So in fact, we'll go back to Clive then.
I might be wrong. I might. Becky's botch up. I don't know that one either.
Exactly. Do you know what? But that's actually really nice, and that shows what you've done and you've inspired other people. So here we go. Another one here. Right, 0.00007. In standard form. I think I might say too many zeros there. So same again. What's the real answer? And what is the mistake? You don't want to use the word misconception, because
it's too big.
But you would always be demanding that's a sentence.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you've got. It's easier said than done. But ideally, you want to say, I'm not. I know you can do it. You prove it to me by doing it. That's fine. All right, but we're doing this because I think you can do all the answers properly.
So you said you use it at the end of a topic. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got your lesson suggestions that Steve Lomax always talk about, which I love, the do it, twist it, solve it approach. So this is very good for AO2. So it could be used in that respect. I think this could easily be used in examination form, in tests, because this is a similar kind of thing.
Yeah.
That
was where this came out. I saw a couple of questions like this in exams where they'd show all the workings, so explain where whatever name they used has gone wrong.
Yeah.
And that's where the idea came from. So the idea is not an original one at all. It's just I happened to run with it because I kind of like doing these things. So.
Well, again, I think it's, I mean, I said it earlier on, if Craig Barton's giving you credit somewhere else, I'm going to reiterate it. Craig Barton said that a previous guest, Dave Taylor, was the king of the master of fluency practice. I really believe this is just one of the easiest, most simple reasoning resources. And the way you just suggested it today about making sure those words are used and where it can be used in the learning journey in different places, I think this is really effective. I think it's a super resource.
Thank you.
Let's talk about some other resources then, because I know, what was the question? Is it a kind of series one you started making? I think you said you got some on your screen to me. If you want
I don't think I've got any. Well, I've got some others. I do. Hold on. Do you want me to find out what was the question then?
I think, well, do you know, well, in which case, I
thought you had what was the question.
Yes, I do. You know what? You're right. I do. So here's a couple of examples. So let's get that to be on screen. So talk us through what you where these came from.
Right, now this was born out of a bit like the explosions thing actually that I showed earlier. Is that, well, if I already know what the answer is, what have they asked me in the first place? And it's very easy for. I don't like it when the students get stuck in a rut of just doing the same thing, just following a mental recipe through a problem. So I want them to go backwards. I wanted to say, well, hang on, what was the thought process of the person setting the question? And so that's where this came from. Like I say, there's some you've got to do a bit of shoehorning a little bit, but I think they work in general. Solve the quadratic equation. I quite like the ones where there's more than one answer. So
I was going to point. I'm disappointed. I thought I'd picked one that it said that. So I'm just looking through some of the ones I'd taken off screen. But are there more than one solution? What a super question.
And I do that on purpose. So what I try and do on each screen is I try to do a relatively easy one, then a slightly harder, then an even harder, then an even harder. They don't have to be in that order, sort of from quadrant 1 to quadrant 4, as it were, but they can be in any order. So it's I wanted to do it so that it can be extended for some, and even when there's questions, because what I often find is there's questions which have multiple answers or infinite answers, that everyone essentially gets the same answer, and then it's down to the teacher to go, well, yeah, that's fine, you're absolutely right, that's the right answer. Has anyone got a different answer?
I'm disappointed because this is exactly what I was thinking before we came on, and I'm trying to think where it was. It was an inequalities one, maybe. I'd seen exactly that.
Yeah, there should be on each one, actually, on each.
I'm just going to scan through some of these where you've done exactly what you said. Is there more than one answer? Now you've made a template, so that's easy to download as well. And again, I just took these. Yeah. Oh, there you go. I mean, it's in your title slide. Is your question the only possible question?
Yeah, and that was done on purpose. That's so that those who are struggling more than others get the sense of, oh, I can do this by answering some of them, and those who claim they find it easy, actually, okay, well, can you do it generally? What I often ask for is, if there's more than one, can you do it algebraically then? So what's your answer algebraically?
So again, going into proof AO2, I'm just trying to think, oh, we go. So I think this
many answers including, and some I do algebraically as well.
Just to show some of those. I think that's really important, that what you're trying to achieve here with making sure they're all.
But you see, with the number line one, for example, there's essentially 4 answers, isn't there? I mean, and so you could. So I've done that one as an example. Mm-hmm. Say, has anyone got something different? And that again builds the confidence in each student. Oh yeah, I've got a different one. I've got a different one. And actually, even if they come up and give me a wrong one, excellent. We call that. I'm not very good at remembering to call them these. We call the mistakes a learning opportunity.
Mhm.
So what have we learned from that mistake? And can anyone explain? And do you now understand why that's a mistake? And the kids go, oh yeah, and yeah, silly me, not a problem. And they probably won't make that mistake again because it actually sticks in the brain. But you know, the fact that we don't go, no, that's wrong, move on. That's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to give people a bit of confidence.
So again, these are reasoning, though, aren't they? So
Yeah.
you've got so you know later on, I'll ask you about what other resources you use, maybe as part of no textbook required, what websites you use for questions. But for your fluency practice, a lot of the stuff you're sharing it seems to be a lot more reasoning. You want them, why not? But it seems to be the discussion to make it stick, to make those connections, and to actually engage in the classroom. You don't want to client classroom with some of your resources.
No, absolutely, and actually, I like discussion because ultimately, I'm old and crumbly compared to the students in my class, and actually, those who really understand it in my class will be able to explain it to those who aren't quite understanding it yet in better language than me often. You know, so that's kind of the point of these. It's to try and get. Then I'm not, whilst I'm the focus initially when we introduce the topic, then everyone becomes the teachers afterwards. And I know that's not everyone's philosophy, but what you know, I like the fact that everyone feels that they can contribute to a lesson.
So what do you think of one of the resources you're most proud of? I mean, I'm showing some of the ones that I've come across, the Clumsy Clives especially, which I think are just so quick and impactful, but being used in the right way. So what are some of the ones you're most proud of that you look back?
I don't know. You see, I thought about this, and I don't actually know. The ones I use the most are the defuse the bombs, the crack the safes. I use the code breakers. I've started doing a typo led me down a path. So I've gone from code breaker to cod breakers. I've put a few of them, which is all fish jokes. Is it all fish puns? So I did one this morning. How does a fish? Nice.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. What was it? How does a fish cook bacon under the krill? You know, that sort of thing. I came up with that one myself.
Fine, I'll ignore.
Yeah.
Hear that.
But it's that sort of thing. I don't have any favourites, but I tend to go back to certain templates. I have what I like about having certain templates and certain concepts that I revisit and do whole. I essentially try and cover the whole curriculum is so that I'm not spending 10 minutes at the beginning of an activity saying, well, what you've got to do is this, and then that means this. And if they recognise the template, they're far more comfortable and just get on with it and get the most done and use the time as wisely as possible.
But so the reason you like those, again, and just to reiterate, one of the main, again, part of this is to talk about how to use them effectively, is the answers are there. And so that's really powerful. Just saying the answer to question 1 is, question 2 is, that's not what you give them. Here are the 10 answers, here are your 10 questions. It's almost like a matching activity.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the code breakers, for example, you see, all the answers are in the alphabet somewhere. So they know that if their answer is not in the alphabet, or it's not spelling something out that makes sense, they know they've gone wrong. So then they can ask for help. And so that's why I quite like the code breakers. I like the Clumsy Clives. I like the Erica's errors. Is there a code breaker? Negative numbers code breaker. There's up there. And the spiders. I like the spiders as well. Although again, that's more the BidMath spiders and the surd spiders.
Let's open it up. It didn't take long to get these things from Tez. That's the point of it.
Oh, no, that's fine. I can open them. I've got them all.
Oh, have you? Well, do you know what? I'm nearly there now. Go on.
Okay, fine. So the spiders, they sort of came out of, I didn't want people to get into a rut. Now that one, I say I didn't want people to get into a rut. That is essentially doing the same thing 8 times. All right. So that's kind of not. But if you go to others further down, if you go to number 6, I think, or number 5 or number 6.
Or spider number 5.
Hang on. You pick one that doesn't prove my point. But there you go. That is entirely my fault. But some I get anyway. Some I give you the answers, and you've got to work out what the question is essentially. And whereas these ones haven't. There's sometimes the concept doesn't work. Actually, no, I can't see any down there. I don't memorize these things. Perhaps I should.
Well, you have uploaded over 1,000.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I still, yeah. You know, what can I say? I just kind of think if I've done it, somebody else might be able to use it. So So why not share it?
That's why I want to make sure we talk about them now again, so that people can go obviously onto Tears and you share so many. However, if I go on to here it is, just a Resourceaholic, previous guest on the series, Joe Morgan. You are number 1. I don't know how many hat tips have you had?
How many what? Sorry, hat tips. I've had a few.
Yeah, well, clearly, I mean, this is one of the most recent. She's referred to us go to the very top. Sorry, I was scrolling down.
Now this came out. Funnily enough, this particular thing came out of a discussion on Twitter.
I think it was this question.
It was, yes, it was that question. Yes, so it came, and this is what I mean is I like taking. I'm quite happy to take requests. All right, so somebody said, I think it was a year 10 class really struggled with this. Any ideas why? And I went, no, okay, no, I might try. That's an interesting question. No, I might try and take that. Now I've done that as not as one where the answers appear, but trying to build up and scaffold. Oh, I hate the word scaffold because it's very teachery.
Yep.
But I'm trying to build up from what they know using the quadratic formula and build up and just move a bit at a time.
So let's have a look. That's the question, and you're thinking well, it's similar to what was your question? What was the question series that you'd done? Now let me go to here. It is. Here's the resource you created. So here's the general quadratic equation in this form. Here's the quadratic formula.
Now, now, can I just say, I know in the GCSE paper you've got to memorise that formula for reasons best known to Michael Gove and Nick Gibb. All right, because ultimately in real life you Google it if you've forgotten it. But there you go. Now, I didn't want anyone to be held up by not quite remembering the formula, and that's why I put it up there. Well, anyway, sorry.
At this stage, though, it's I think it's deep fluency. We're getting into reasoning as well. Yeah. But notice where it's practice putting them in. It's practice putting them into the right place, brackets around them all the time, and you can talk about why if you took away the bracket.
Yeah, now, funnily enough, I had to rewrite this because I didn't put brackets in originally, and then I thought I really ought to, because I say it all the time in class. You have to put brackets around it, because otherwise that little squared bit is a bit of a mess up sometimes.
Then you compare calculators' performance against each other, and a negative versus negative 4 all squared. But I love the fact that the empty box, these are empty box questions, and I'm a big fan of empty boxes. You really have to think about it. Again, I've talked to Open Middle, Robert Kopinski before, and you've got empty box here, empty box here, empty box here, empty box across here. And what a nice choice. Just the making it nice. So it's not just the same.
Yeah, I mean,
shove it in, get a result. Take this, shove it in, get a result. You really
absolutely.
Each way.
I really don't like them the students getting into a rut and just basically brainlessly typing stuff in, and that's what I'm trying to avoid by doing this. So hopefully it works. I don't know. People seem to like it anyway, so that's a good thing.
No, this is an utterly fabulous idea. And what this does as well, and I sent you a question before we met today to think about it. And I've written design your own. And I like what you said already about you see what somebody else has thought about and you twisted it for your own in your own mind, if you like. But also, I mean, take this the right way. You're not doing anything that's it's all necessary. It's needed. It's helpful. You're not doing anything groundbreaking.
No, not at all. I've never claimed to do anything new. I basically all I do is put it and make it look quite nice in Word or PowerPoint. And hopefully make it fairly easy to follow.
But you're doing the basics of, are you thinking about it both ways? Have you performed the operation? Can you reverse the operation? Can you explain the operation? We're then talking about conceptual understanding and procedural fluency. And Andy, I really believe that your resources are all doing that, which is fabulous. It really is.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Well, no, and that's why, and it's nice to actually speak to you, because if you just looked at your images, and you'll hopefully take this the right way, some of the images you share, you're thinking, I'm wondering who this guy is. You're this mysterious.
Yeah, I look far scarier than I really am. I'm like, what was the big puffy thing in Ghostbusters that came at the end? Because
Marshmallow.
The Mr. Marshmallow. Yeah, that's kind of me. Right. I look nasty, but I'm not really.
I've got a story in my head about New Year's Eve where I was going to wear that, changed my mind last minute, went as He-Man, and then the first person I met was wearing He-Man. I was gutted. And they had a 30-foot marshmallow man in the garden of the pub I was in. I was gutted. I would have won that night. Anyway, Completely irrelevant, completely not worth sharing. Although I'm not going to edit it out. It's the fun of pretending we're still live. Now, I know you're a musical man, Andy. You and I both, that we both record by vinyl still, which is superb. So I'm hoping that the segment of what I do in each of these interviews is, it's called No Textbook Required.
Yeah.
I think you'll recognise the song, and there'll be a moment for you to sing. So if you'll just excuse me just a moment.
Have I got to sing?
Yeah.
Hold on.
So this is
Oh,
longer intro.
yeah.
Gotta wait. Sorry. Wait, no. This was a mistake. Never mind. Here we go.
There's some mess that's been on my mind. It's all online. No textbook required.
This is a new thing.
Yeah.
Lovely, super stuff. That's an old edit. I got rid of that music. The reason I do know textbook required, yes, I'm a Phil Collins fan, and I just had this idea of there is so much online, which is why I'm promoting you so much, Andy, because I'm not anti-textbook. There's just so much good stuff being shared online.
I totally agree. I must admit, I'm not anti-textbook. I don't tend to use them, I have to say, but they're another tool that I could use.
Exactly.
Sorry.
That's all that I want to reiterate, because that's what I say here. I want teachers to make sure they don't blindly follow the question, because if you take the tool and say do questions 1 to 10, you haven't thought about it. So textbooks can be beautiful if you think, well, I need question 1 and 5 because they're different and they vary slightly. Question 8, oh, that'll challenge them because I really have to conceptually understand what's going on. So that's the point of this kind of little segment. You'll recognise the classic album cover. I know you will.
Absolutely.
But what are your favourite online resources? So what are the ones you go to then?
Yeah, I go to ResourceFULL. I think that's an absolutely fantastic resource.
Indeed.
Genuinely, and not just because they very occasionally say that mine are quite nice. I honestly, from year 7 up, possibly earlier, up to A level, absolutely invaluable resource. So there's that. I use the increasingly difficult worksheets.
Okay.
I use them a lot as well. I think they're very good.
Back on the screen again. And,
yeah, absolutely.
Previous episode, we saw there was an e-textbook of it as well now, which you started.
Oh, is there? Oh, okay, fair enough. I didn't know that.
You hadn't watched it then, Andy. I'm not even slightly offended.
No, I haven't. No, I've been busy writing more Clumsy Clive.
For that, that's okay. I forgive you.
I will go back and watch it immediately. What was I going to say? I really like Don Stewart. His Medium website.
Indeed.
They're all in your cookies and all that.
Well, you know what? All of these are a resourceful connection because I've got 3 people lined up. We've got 4 of us who are going to look at this website after the holidays,
right.
Including
it's fantastic. If I'm going to be brutally honest, okay, not all of them. This doesn't have answers. All right, so
I thought of that, but because you said earlier on, I was going to mention the Don Stewart website, but I didn't because he actually always made a point of not putting the answers.
I know.
To make you do it. And again, I was the same when I started teaching. I didn't like the website because I found it frustrating, but now I see the point.
I totally see the point. It's just quite annoying. I get the point, and that's what it's completely his. It was completely his prerogative not to put answers there, and that's fine. It's not something I'd do, but that's fine. It just takes my time.
I think his questions, because yours are a lot more fluent, you just need the answer. His are a lot more problem solving, and you can't really just be given the answer of a problem solving activity. You need to go through it. Absolutely.
I get that, yeah, and that's fine, and that's to be fair, he can do what he likes. They were his resources. It's just it takes me ages sometimes because some of them are quite hard. But there you go.
And do you know what? It's nice to hear a maths teacher admit to that as well, because it took me a long time to accept that I won't always get everything right. Occasionally we use the wrong words, etc. And we do.
I make mistakes all the time, and actually, I use the word stuff a lot to do, and I do it on purpose. Actually, I didn't originally, but I do it on purpose because the kids go, oh, "Can you stop using the word stuff like this?" Like they're getting really irate. I say, "Oh well, what would you use instead?" And actually, it gets a nice little conversation about proper maths words.
I like it. I like it a lot.
There you go. if I'm honest, I'm over-egging my contribution a bit there as well. I started because I have days, I get senior moments, as Terry Wogan used to call them, right? And I can't actually remember the word I want.
Oh yeah, we all
so
do
I
that.
use stuff.
Of course.
But then the students actually will then come up with the word for me.
I was interviewing Craig Barton, and he had a line that was this direction, and I called it Spanty because I couldn't think of the word diagonal. You know, just stop the moment, you get things wrong, and if you get corrected, that's fantastic. Isn't it nice when pupils correct your mistakes? There's nothing wrong with that. Don't be scared of that.
What absolutely right. And what's nice about when kids correct your mistakes is that they're confident enough to do that. So you set up the environment where they're happy to do that. And actually making the teacher look stupid is a nice little game.
And it's one I regularly partake in.
To be fair, I play it without realising. It's fine. I'm quite happy. But I laugh at my own jokes, and they go, "But they said, why are you laughing at your own jokes? That's really sad." I said, well, if I don't, what chance have I got? Jeez, if at least I laugh, then it's done part of its job.
And it's been such a joy to meet you, and such a joy to chat with you as well. Thank you for your contribution.
Cool. No problem.
Go and get those Clumsy Clives. They really are absolutely fantastic resources. But as you can see from today, hopefully, and resources, plenty of fluency, real consideration of procedural, and it's not just the do this. Working backwards, what was the question resources, the Clumsy Clives, making sure speak like a mathematician, really, really strong resources. And again, thank you very much, Andy.
No problem. Thanks, Tom.